OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
I'm going to start with the Irish Independent this morning and the ongoing Paddy Jackson scenario. Waikato is an option for Jackson. This is because John O'Gibbs is supposed to be the coach at Waikato. The other story there, Roscommon satisfied Hyde safety issues can be addressed for potential final. Strong words in the dressing room in the immediate aftermath of the game against Leitrim at the weekend from the Roscommon manager, Kevin McStay, who said that this game was going to be played in the Hyde. It's their turn to host it, and they hoped that somebody would show up to take them on. Times Ireland next. Doyle does a Carius. I mean, it's not really. Much smaller game, much less significance. It's a mistake. It's not quite as bad, I would say.
But the actual error is very similar.
Yeah. Jackson may join Oling in France is the other aspect of that. Kieran Rallick has the notion that perhaps Brive will also be a suitable landing spot for Paddy Jackson. The Jeremy Davidson connection with Ulster, obviously, as Brive coach, the fact that they're off Broadway in the Pro D2. Cork's health vital for Munster as a viable championship is Jim McGuinness this week, and is life too short to read that much about the Cork footballers?
I read the first 10, 11 paragraphs, no mention of Celtic, no mention of an airport. Jim has changed, I'm telling you. He's completely changed.
Bit of self-consciousness. Good bit of when we were in charge of Donegal.
Is there, yeah?
There is,
I
yeah.
didn't read
I got
the
that
second
far. It's either North Pole or South Pole with Mayo, says Rochford. We'll bring you more on Rochford a little bit later on. Mr. Happy and Mr. Hold Your Horses on a night. Doyle has a mare. This is Mary Hannigan's view. An abbreviated panel last night with Duffer and Sadler.
Yeah, it's almost more focused on analysis and less focused on, hot takes. It was almost enjoyable analysis last night, I dare say. I don't want anybody to get ahead of themselves.
Did you miss the hot takes?
I'm just saying that they had two very good analysts in studio last night.
They do 20 minutes on why Pogba's a charlatan.
I might have missed that bit when I went off to bed. But I'm telling you, having two good analysts in the studio actually works as a television format. No. Believe it or not, it actually works.
No, never going to take off. Never. That's not what people want. People don't want to be informed. All they want is a cheap row on.
Well, maybe those people have a better sense of the world than I do.
Carbery needs game time, but he must decide where, is the headline on Jerry Thorney's piece in the Irish Times. I think there's a different headline on the digital about it being a win-win for everybody. Our information is that the Joey Carbery to Munster thing is looking far more likely than not, that at the moment Munster would be in the box seat, but that we can expect a last-minute push from Leinster to try and keep him. Joe Schmidt obviously wants him to go, and as we've said all along, Schmidt tends to get what he wants. As a Leinster supporter from the same town that Joey Carbery's from, I want him to stay, because I just think that it's important that people from outside the traditional hotspots of rugby in the province end up playing for Leinster. Like, if Joey Carbery goes to Munster and is as good as everybody thinks he is, then you're going to find a lot of people from South Leinster turning back into Leinsters, because it's like, well, that's not actually my team anymore. This guy, that's where he's from.
These are extraordinary times, though. This is our biggest ever opportunity of breaking our duck when it comes to the quarter-final hoodoo in the World Cup.
I mean placing that on Joey Carbery's shoulders is, frankly, I think, ridiculous. All he's doing is getting a bit more game time. He'll get plenty of game time at Leinster because they have 1,000 matches to play between now and the World Cup, and they only have 3 credible players for one position at 10, and they really only have 3 credible, maybe only 2 credible position players at 15. So he's going to get loads and loads of top quality game time.
3 credible players at 15.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. There's been no indication from Leinster that they see Larmour as a 15. They picked him on the wing almost exclusively. So,
but it's just like, this isn't placing it all on Joey Carbery's future or on his shoulders. I'm not saying that Ireland will win the World Cup because of Joey Carbery or because of his happiness or how his development is going. But you have to consider every single element. You have to think of the bloodbath that ensued, that lost us essentially the Argentina game in the last World Cup. If we didn't have all those injuries, we would have come a hell of a lot closer.
Yeah, fair enough.
We need the depth. We need Joey Carbery to be a good backup 10.
Sean O'Brien was suspended. We lost Paul O'Connell because his hamstring was torn off the bone. There's a bunch of players.
Yes, and what if Johnny Sexton gets hurt in our final pool game?
Well, then he
probably won't play the final pool game, but in one of the first 2 pool games.
Well, then you're going to have to go with Ross Byrne or Joey Carbery at 10, both of whom will have had plenty of game time, both of whom will actually have seen him.
But they won't have had plenty of game time in the biggest Champions Cup matches. He'll have to play in front of a Thomond Park that expects next season. Like, that is real expectancy. Ireland expects when it goes to the World Cup next year.
Leinster have just won every game they played in Europe to win the Champions Cup.
And how many of them did Joey Carbery play as a starting 10?
He was injured for 4 months this year.
He wouldn't have been the starting 10 anyway. Johnny Sexton would have been the starting 10 for Leinster in every single one of those European matches. Well, no question.
So he wasn't, because Ross Byrne started the Montpellier game away, and there's every chance that Sexton's going to get injured at some point. They're probably also going to rest him a bit more next season.
How many games did Ross Byrne play? 1, wasn't it?
Ross Byrne played like 1,400 minutes at 10 last year.
That's across the Pro 14 as well.
Yeah, and so you've got, like, those games count. They're still matches. There's still an opposition 7 trying to break your ankle every time he comes running at you. Like, far too much has been made of his patriotic responsibility to move provinces, when actually it's his career and it's his life, and if he wants to stay at Leinster, who are the best team, the best club in world rugby at the minute, then he is well within his rights to do so, and he should tell them all to go and shite, basically.
He also has a right to go and,
possibly the best team we've ever seen in any sport.
Ever. That 8 a.m. champagne is never a good idea, Ger.
Right, let's move on. So anyway, that's what we think is going to happen. We think that it's going to be announced this week that he's probably going to be ending up joining Munster. That's the latest we've heard.
What's on the Examiner this morning?
Examiner. French lesson, O'Neill's Ireland endure tough night at Stade de France. The rain fell down on last year's men. It lashed rain in the second half. Amazing photographs from that. We'll show you some of them a little bit later on. And then a really great piece from Mike Quirk this morning, where he's talking about the pundits sucking the joy out of football. He tells a story of a training session a couple of years back under Jack O'Connor, when they had a group appointment with a sports psychologist. I mean, I think that might have been a bit of an issue. He says they were like kids snickering at mass. Eventually, after 45 minutes, your man, who is supposed to be there for like an hour and a half, goes, right, I've had enough of you. Shower of Kerry whores. And he walked out.
That's a tough room.
He says there's a great story from it, though, that actually stuck with him. So a little nugget sticks with Mike Quirk all these years later. 2 salesmen were sent to some far-flung destination from the same shoe manufacturer to examine if there would be any potential to develop and expand into a new market. The first salesman was quick on the phone back to his boss, forget about this place, zero potential here. Nobody even wears shoes. The second salesman took a slightly different angle. Huge opportunity for growth. Absolutely nobody wears shoes. He's like, it's all about your perspective.
Yes.
You see these things, you think, and he's like, looking at the football last weekend, amazing joy outpouring for Longford, amazing joy outpouring for Carlow. Cork beating Tipperary, who were actually favourites and who really, just by recent results, should have beaten Cork. So 3 big upsets, and he's like, Sunday game, talking about crap football, negativity, game's gone, focusing on the Dubs, blowing out Wicklow. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I didn't make it to the football section of the Sunday game at the weekend, but I endeavour to watch it back at some point this week, so I can't quite comment on their coverage of what happened at the weekend. But I do argue that it is acceptable to admire the joy and the incredible nature of some of those results, while also mentioning how they managed to achieve that. And sometimes a county needs to do things that a neutral might not enjoy, and that's not to say that the specifics that occurred at the weekend are like that. I didn't see the Longford game. I saw the Carlow game, and Carlow were very enjoyable.
No mention of Carlow's 100% record from shooting, he says.
Yeah, well, that's a glaring omission, because that was a stat of the day, clearly. But I also think that it is possible to sit down and analyse that Carlow team and say they are so well equipped defensively. And that's not a negative thing. It's like we can still enjoy really good defensive football.
Well, you can't if everybody always says it's shit.
Well, that's it. That's
my problem. Nobody points it out and nobody understands why it's good or how they got there.
That's my problem with the coverage of Carlow and teams like that, because they deserve a lot more credit than that. It's an entertaining brand of football from my perspective, and I think from most people's perspective. I mean, you go to that game on Sunday and you try not to be enjoyed, and you will fail miserably. It was enthralling to watch them turn over the ball time and time again.
Bookies on alert over the Tory and Hazapur in the Derby. This is Hazapur, Dermot well trained, was available at 14-1 yesterday, down to 11-1 by close of play last night, and they expect that there'll be a bit of a bet on him. And then Kyle Edmund is yet to win an ATP World Tour title. but bookies believe that the British number one is not without a chance of making an impact at the French Open. I mean, how much does a tennis player from Britain have to do to make an impact? Get beaten in 5 sets in the first round? Does that count?
Well, let's not forget, we were sitting here back during the Australian Open when Carl Edmund made it all the way to the semi-finals.
We were.
Against that. Who was that guy from the US as well who turned out to have a terrible worldview?
Oh, I can't even remember.
Well, thankfully...
That was this year.
That was this year, I know.
Wow.
It is like 4 months ago, though, so it's a fairly long time. The back page of the Herald this morning goes with Paris pains for Ireland. Third straight loss for O'Neill, but debuts give future hope. You've also got James McCarthy saying that they can't afford to lose focus. On the back of the Irish Daily Mail this morning, it says, damp squib. Ireland outclassed by French, and O'Neill says that they're going to have to step up, while Mayo's Keegan is going to be back for the Limerick qualifier. A huge boost for Mayo there as they try and get some sort of momentum in the back door. On the back page of the Mirror this morning, it's Gareth Bale, £335 million, it says. Now, I don't like this trend in transfer reporting that you include all the wages.
Come on, that's exactly what you should do. That's the price of the club, and suddenly everybody starts to go, that is obscene. Come on, that's exactly right.
Just so you know, it's £200 million is what they're talking in terms of a transfer fee for Gareth Bale.
No.
But you will
too old for that.
But when you say £335 million, you are automatically speculating about the length of the contract. Nobody really knows how long a contract Gareth Bale
I presume that they're getting details, no?
Are they really? Is it like... Why has Gareth Bale decided to leak his details to the Mirror this morning after leaking them to the Sun yesterday?
To drive up his market value so that the agent gets really huge kudos with the next young footballers. Like, you got Gareth Bale, 300 million quid. Yes, I'll sign with you. To
be fair, it's John Cross with this piece today, so you would imagine he's got some fairly well-placed sources, but you're talking about 650 grand a week, by the way, for Gareth Bale, would you?
600 grand a week?
650 grand a week. Pounds. It's 200 million pounds as well.
200 million pounds, including transfer fee.
No, that is a 200 million pound transfer fee plus 650 grand a week.
For Man United?
Manchester United.
They won't do it. Maybe if they sell Pogba. Well, you could sell Pogba and Sanchez and get that 200 million, right? Roughly? Could you? Will PSG give you 200 million for those two players? They probably will.
You don't want to get rid of Paul Pogba now, though.
Why not? It hasn't exactly worked.
It hasn't exactly worked, but there's hope in the Pogba story, no? The little glimmers we've seen throughout the season. Of course, the glaring omission here is that he will still have the same manager next year, which will probably stunt Pogba's development a further year. But
Man United is the issue.
Manchester United is the issue. The back page of the Star says, blunder and lightning as France beat Ireland 2-0. O'Neill praises Doyle's character after first half clanger, and he's probably right to do so. It was a good response from the goalkeeper. The back page of the Sun says, for feck's sake, Mart curses luck. That is Nabil Fekir, who scored the second goal for France last night. He's linked with Liverpool actually at the moment. He's hot property in European football. You'd imagine he'll have a good World Cup as well to push up his market value further. The back page of The Guardian this morning says, spot fixing investigation. ICC intends to interview the 5 players allegedly involved. So these are unnamed England and Australia cricketers alleged to have been involved in spot fixing. There was an Al Jazeera undercover investigation into this, and they're going to be interviewed by the ICC probe over the coming days. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that.
Fabinho signed, obviously, for Liverpool yesterday on the QT.
Yeah, that's basically a replacement for Emre Can, kind of a holding midfielder.
Better than Emre Can, though, right?
I think so. I think he probably is. He certainly comes with a bit of a higher reputation than Emre Can did when he arrived. Comes from Monaco. Like, it's hard to know quite how quickly they've got this thing done. It was clearly in the works back in January. Wasn't there talk about Emre Can actually completing his move away in January? So maybe it was the wheels were in motion at that point. So they've just managed to just push this through straight after the Champions League final. Acting quickly, they're not resting on their laurels at all, Liverpool. A good signing by the looks of things, though. And it's tennis on the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section. Blooming Heather, Watson joins Norrie in second round on Dream Day for British hopes. You've also got that Fabinho story there on the bottom. Liverpool swoop for £43.7 million Fabinho. It's part of a £200 million summer spree, apparently, at Liverpool. So, that is basically all the sports pages this morning. French Open kicking into gear, as we say. It'll probably be 3-4 more days before we start actually caring about French Open.
The The front page of the Irish Sun is about 3 lives lost to violence, 3 families less devastated, a nation mourns. Obviously, it's a far more important story than the stories in the lead of the English Sun, but we just wanted to point this out. Raheem shoots himself in the foot, gun tat fury, aces sick new tattoo. Obviously, sick is, so the kids might pick up the paper and go, oh, he's got a sick new tattoo. But the Sun have decided that Raheem Sterling is sick because he's done this. This is part of a long pattern of behaviour from the Sun and the Daily Mail in particular, vilifying Raheem Sterling as a young, successful black man who refuses to live his life quietly. I just want to read this for you. It's from an Instagram story. When I was 2, my father died from being gunned down to death. I made a promise to myself I would never touch a gun in my lifetime. I shoot with my right foot so it has a deeper meaning and still unfinished. So fair play to Raheem Sterling for doing what he wants and not taking any shit from the English media, because the English media are a despicable bunch. Here's just a sample of some of the headlines for you. So that looks to me, the fall of Sterling, life and times of 3 lines, footy idiot. Raheem Sterling hires private jet and heads for 2 holidays in week before joining up with the England World Cup squad. So he takes a private jet. Then there's another one later on where he's actually on board an EasyJet flight on return from his holidays and he gets slagged off for that. So it's like he's an asshole for having a private jet, he's an asshole for being on EasyJet. Tired Raheem at 3 a.m, 3 Lions party. It's like, man has night out. There's the EasyJet headline. He earns 200 grand a week but takes £80 EasyJet flight from a holiday. So the Mail very proud of their work there. Man City star Raheem Sterling spotted bargain hunting in Pound World. They've got good cheap chocolate.
It was light bulbs, I think, on that particular occasion.
He buys clothes from Primark while on 180 grand a week. Well, Primark, great Irish company. Why the hell wouldn't he support them? Plain sailing. There you go, there's the plain one. How many children does Raheem Sterling have and who is his fiancée? Paige Million. So, really shitty behaviour from the English press, and you get the opportunity to kind of see the trends over a period of time. Fair play to Gareth Bale for pointing this out. He's been one of the people beating the drum that people need to get on with their lives and leave Raheem Sterling to be who he is.
Yeah, like it's
an unbelievably successful and talented young footballer who is coming to a peak of his career.
Yeah, I see one Mr. Morgan on Twitter this morning as well, defending the media that he said something like, footballers will always try and do things before a World Cup to rock the boat. What the hell are you talking about? What? How on earth is this tattoo on his leg an attempt to rock the boat by Raheem Sterling? Like, stop blaming the media, he's saying. Well, I think we've pretty much outlined a number of reasons why this is a targeted campaign of, as you say, a black man who's not going to live his life quietly and therefore is an absurd human. It is disgusting. It's a campaign is the only thing you can describe it as by 2 publications in particular.
Let's move on.